Okay, everybody just take a deep breath. Loosen your sphincters. We don't need any rush hour Rambos there.
Do you ever wonder what it would look like if other people looked out for others, if criminals came calling? This scene is a great debate of the pros and cons of gun carry laws. Though it worked out for the dude defending himself from the criminals, didn't work out so good for him when the predator came calling. By the way, was this guy so nervous that he cut one when he drew his gun? Because this girl sure acts like he did. Anyways, as we talked about in the earlier videos, this predator is just out of control with its arrogant hunting nature. And in this scene, it is downright careless as it goes after its prey in a heavy populated train, rather than picking an opportune time to go after Leona and Lambert. It is just circumstance that it crashes into a train that has lots of armed targets. Even though this is the case, there will be many survivors who did not have guns, along with Leona, who will talk about this invisible thing that was killing everyone on the train. Once again, it's another example how this creature is just brazen and reckless in regards to its hunting style, and I love it. So welcome back to our last and final episode on Predator 2. We hope you've watched the earlier videos, and if you haven't, it's fine. Let's move on. Another joke aimed at slimeball reporter Pope is that even the Predator doesn't seem to like him as it punches the screen when he's on it. There just doesn't seem to be any love for this character in the movie. Now, we already discussed in our last video that Lambert's growth as a character in a few days he's been with Harrigan's team comes full circle during this scene. But what I didn't mention about his death scene was that originally the creature was supposed to be jumping off walls and climbing everywhere inside the subway car. But because they had a guy in a suit, it was not so easy. However, this created a problem for the film because Lambert is an experienced cop with gunfire training. He would have hit the Predator after 2 clips used at least a few times. And on top of that, the Predator has little armor, as you can see. And it was just walking towards him from the middle aisle, and yet it did not get wounded once in this confrontation. And we know this because it didn't leave a blood trail, and we didn't see any of its blood, period. When Harrigan arrives to the subway crime scene above ground, there was a scene that was verified to be filmed in which Heineman is talking to the press. When he sees Harrigan, he intercepts him, telling him that he needs his help to explain all this to the media. Harrigan asks where Keyes is, and Heineman states that he and his team just disappeared and left the police hanging. Harrigan then leaves his old friend to fend for himself because Heineman left him hanging. Then Harrigan heads to Leona, leaving Heineman to return to the press alone and frustrated. Now, in the film, you can see some remnants of this scene. As Harrigan pushes through the crowd, you can notice he bumps past Heineman. This is where the scene would take place. And you can see Davies was following Glover in order to make the scene occur. However, in the final film, it just cuts from this moment to Leona. An interesting thing about this scene is that this was in the final script and was in the novel as well. So it's evident author Simon Hawke had access to the revisions of the script as they filmed. So this gives the novel a bit more cred. If you're familiar with film novels, they usually use older versions of the script and do not have the most up-to-date scripts. The Predator 2 novel, though, has the latest script changes in it. For the third time in the film, the hardcore van gets some abuse when the Predator jumps on it and makes a huge dent in the roof, and then Harrigan jumps on it as well. Then Pope himself gets pummeled. It's perfect satire, especially since the actor was scandalous, with a very loud and divisive television show matching the character in the movie.
If I depended on a guy like you, New Jersey's preeminent lawyer, I'd find my ass in the crapper for the rest of my life.
I honestly think that had Keyes' team not intercepted Harrigan, he would have followed the creature to his doom unprepared. So Keyes intervening here is a blessing in disguise for Harrigan, because when he later escapes, he gets his vest and arms himself fully, and that vest saved his life. One thing I hate in this movie, even though it's a popular image, is the lightning scene, as it was so unnecessary.
Let me ask a really stupid question.
If we already established that the Predator is mortal, wouldn't lightning hurt it? I could very well be wrong. Anyways, a scene not in the film had Keyes explaining that he actually sent the team commanded by Jim Hopper to look for the Predator in the first film. They failed, and as a result, the military sent Dutch to look for Hopper's team, not knowing what Keyes specifically ordered them to do. This is why Dillon had no idea what happened to Hopper. This was in the novel and scripts. And to add to that pile, Busey himself stated this.
I set up the last mission, which was the CIA commission in the jungles. And that's how we lost the character that Arnold played. We lost him 9 weeks after the movie was over.
To clarify on his statement in the novel, Keyes would state that Dutch went missing 9 weeks after the movie. Keyes recalled to Harrigan that Dutch was debriefed and then sent to a hospital suffering radiation sickness from his events from the first film, and then he escaped never to be seen again. Even though Arnold wasn't going to be in the movie, a blink and you miss it moment shows Anna from the first film alongside Ramon's girl on the screen. The final script had many lines for her. Whether or not this was ever filmed, I could not ascertain. Now, hearing that Dutch escaped suggests that Keyes holds people who know about this creature, and the book would verify this, in that Harrigan felt he would not be allowed to go anywhere, and his only way out was to escape from these people somehow. Of course, when Harrigan does escape, there was an awkward gaffe when Glover is made to look like he's choking his captor. The man made choking sounds even though Glover does not have his hands around the man's throat. He does have fingers on one side, but not the other. I guess another take was needed for this scene. Oh well.
Door. Open it. Go fuck yourself.
The slaughterhouse scene was very difficult in that the set had to be sealed and everyone had to wear suits so the dust would not be disturbed. For ultraviolet lighting purposes, there was an intentional nod to Aliens in that the film monitors were in sync at the command center to observe the team entering the facility. Like Aliens, Garber has a moment of indecision when Harrigan tells him to get his team out, just like Ripley did to Gorman, and then Harrigan takes it upon himself to save them, just like Ripley did in that film. The parallels are obvious, but not unwelcome. I really want to take a moment to note Kevin Peter Hall's acting and body movement during the warehouse scenes. He really was the greatest actor to ever don the costume of the creature, because his action shows so much emotion. Whether it's alarm when the creature sees Keyes' team, to its abject annoyance and anger when it yanks off its shoulder cannon after it's malfunctioning. He emoted so well, and it's something later films missed out a lot. I would even argue that Hall's performance in this film trumps the first one. It should be easy for most to guess what the Predator blood was made of.
It's made of brick, like your brain.
The blood of the Predator was a simple solution of KY jelly and glow sticks. Problem was, they had only so much time before the glow stick luminescence would fade, so they had to be quick about filming it when it was applied. Now, an interesting tidbit from the novel was that the Predator was severely humiliated that its mask was removed by Harrigan in the slaughterhouse. Also, the book stated that its helmet fell into a vent after it got back up. Thus, it cannot put it back on, and Earth's atmosphere, given enough time, is toxic to the Predator. Now, in the movie, it does focus on its mask sliding across the floor, suggesting that the creature loses track of it when Keyes returns. This is why the creature should have booked it back to its ship. Instead, its pride gets the better of it. So, it continues to spar with him, despite taking the more intelligent action and just getting the hell out of there. When Keyes is killed, one of the cut scenes forced due to a possible NC-17 rating was Keyes' death. After being cut in half, Keyes was originally filmed with his upper half falling to the floor while his entrails hanged out. As expected, this scene was entirely removed to help get the film an R rating. An annoying moment for me in the film was right here, when Harrigan slams into the Predator. He has a spear in his hands, and rather than stab it from behind, he just tackles the creature, most likely falling to his death for all he knew. They really should have rethought this scene, but it does lead into the rooftop confrontation that was filmed 13 stories above ground. The actors had harnesses to keep them safe from falling. After the Predator lost its arm, they hired a one-armed stuntman named R. David Smith to fill the role. He was attached to what was called a descender rig and was lowered at a very fast pace. Then they slowed his descent. I do love the medical scene, as it was very innovative and showed cool concepts that made the Predator even more interesting. And once again, a big plus in the movie is the world building at play, especially for the Predator species. The fall for Harrigan from the elevator is supposed to represent Alice falling down the rabbit hole. Although artistic, it really doesn't do much for my viewing experience. The Predator's ship interior was designed to be biomechanical, not metal. Hopkins referred to the ship as being almost ceramic and was basically like a shell from a turtle or armadillo that a predator would emerge from whenever it chose to hunt. It was also very Mayan themed, which was continued in Alien vs. Predator, and I appreciate that they respected that continuity. In that film, when the skull of the alien appeared in the film, Fox wanted it cut out. Stan mentioned the idea to Steven, and he was completely on board with it. For collectors out there looking for original movie props, it's doubtful you will ever see this prop because it was reported stolen by the Los Angeles Police Department back in the day. The Predators on the ship consisted of many of the LA Lakers, who Danny Glover was close with, and since most of them were tall, they were perfect for the creatures. Kevin Peter Hall would play the Grayback, and the costume is actually the one used for the first Predator film with many alterations. Now, there was an alternate ending of the film, which is mentioned in the novel and later scripts, where Grayback cuts off the head of the city predator for failing in its hunt. It was debated during filming, but Hopkins and the team wanted a more honorable and traditional predator tribe for better world building, and it was the right call. At the end, a flintlock was thrown at Harrigan with the name Raphael Adelini. This flintlock would be explained in a short story comic called Predator 1718 within a special issue called A Decade of Dark Horse, which was released on July 1996. In it, a pirate captain named Raphael Adelini raided everything but churches, and his crew argues with him that churches have great wealth. The crew disobeys their captain and steals from a church, and Adelini fights them, and the Predator, witnessing this, decides to help the captain who is outnumbered. At the end of the fight, the Predator and captain stand off as if they're about to fight. However, the captain is suddenly shot in the back by a hiding crewman. The Predator kills this sniveling crewman, and with his dying breath, Adelini hands over his flintlock to Grayback, saying,
Take it.
Unfortunately, this better origin story for the pistol was ignored by Fox in favor of member berries. In the sequel Prey, a new owner of the pistol was a French translator who worked with ruthless trappers. After the trappers were all killed, Adelini would teach Naru how to use the pistol, and she would later shoot the Predator and kill it. She would keep the weapon and give the Predator's head and mask to her tribe, which means that sometime in the future, the flintlock tale would continue in future sequels. At the end of the film, the government's pretty upset, but it's not a complete loss for them. They have a lot of the Predator items that they never had before. They had the shoulder cannon, they have the spear, they have an arm of the Predator. So they not only have alien technology they can back engineer, but they have biological material as well. That's what makes Alien vs. Predator 2 so stupid. At the end, they have a shoulder cannon. The film acts like it's some kind of huge ordeal, and yet it's not, because if the government backtracked in Predator 2, they already have this stuff, making the entire story point just repetitive like most things. and Requiem. Of all the Predator soundtracks, this soundtrack has always been my favorite. This one raised the level of ferocity while still capturing the tone of the first film. I don't go a year without listening to it, and it's great for background music when playing an intense video game. Predator 2 turned out to be a cult film by many, and through time it has only gained strength as audiences were shoveled slop movies as time went on. In 2020, Fox, or Disney, was planning to re-release Predator 2 in theaters with a new 70mm print, in which Peter Levy and Hopkins oversaw the project. However, once the dumpster fire that was 2018's The Predator came out, the studio halted the re-release because instead of invigorating the Predator franchise, the 2018 movie turned it into a joke. As of today, the re-release of Predator 2 is actually sitting on a shelf. I cringe at the day I'm going to cover 2018's The Predator, as I loathe that film, but I promise I will cover all Alien and Predator films, and, as a kind man once said,
I'm a man of my word.
As for Predator 2, I have a hard time deciding which one I like more, the first film or the second one. I like each film for different reasons, and I could easily pick one over the other for said reasons. But I think it's only fair that I give you, my viewers, a decision. So, to help me with this decision, I've invited a channel friend named CinemaGulp to put forth his case, which he thinks is better. So, without further ado, here's what he has to say.
Thanks, RT. This is a plight I find myself in a lot when deciding which Predator movie I want to watch, the original or this one. What the original has going for it above all the others is the mystique, the mystery, as to what's stalking our characters. Once you know, you know.
I know something you don't know.
What Predator 2 does so well is keep the mystery aspect well enough away from our protagonists that even though we know it's a predator, they don't. And the decision to make it a police procedural story aids in that effort. Whereas the original is an action, rescue, sci-fi horror movie that turns into an all-out survival flick, the second at its core is a detective story, following the clues, developing hunches, eyewitness accounts that don't make sense.
Well, obviously we have a in Lincoln Park. He's climbing in your windows.
It's the film noir for Predator films. And the two directors could not be more different. Crafting a sequel with none of your main stars from the original is a tricky task at best. And I think Stephen Hopkins does a masterful job here. Though I think the first act of the original is a slow burn, almost as a slasher movie have you, it works in the setting that's provided. And John McTiernan really knows how to set the tension and get us to care about the characters having little to no backstory on any of them. And then seeing them in action as total bosses, you get a sense of what they can do and what they can handle. The second act you realize they can't handle it and they're way outmatched. In the second movie, we set up the mystery. After that, set up the conflict. And then by the third act, we get an all-out chase that distinguishes itself from any other Predator movie. The last 45 minutes of Predator 2 is balls to the wall, excitement, eye candy, great practical stunts and visuals. It just never lets its foot off the gas. Stephen Hopkins and stunt coordinator Gary Davis set the bar so high with this intense final act that just moves forward at a breakneck pace.
Lions, the tigers, the bears. Oh my.
It's here where we get some more development of what this younger Predator can do and can't do. Tearing off a piece of drywall and bathroom tile to create the ultimate remedy to cauterize a wound is insane. Such great detail went into that. John McTiernan created a third act that is hunter versus hunter. Dutch sets the traps and makes the Predator come to him, both with the same goal to win the hunt. Dutch has to use his primal instincts and go bare bones toe-to-toe with the Predator without any technology whatsoever. What Hopkins does with Predator 2 is Harrigan chasing and hunting the Predator who he has on the run. Harrigan's packing some nice firepower, but but at the end, still just ends up with a one-on-one, hand-to-hand combat scenario. It's an amazing contrast between the two endings. We knew what Harrigan could do from seeing him in action in the first 2 acts, but it's not until the third act that you really see what a driving force he is and what a big challenge he presents to our young, naive Predator. And I agree with RT, the younger, more naive and impulsive Predator is just more exciting and interesting to watch on screen. Whereas our first one goes through the movie basically like a Michael Myers from outer space, the second one shows you more of a naive teenager, impulsive, and thinks he's tough as nails, and pretty much is, but also finds out how quickly he can be outsmarted by Harrigan. Which one do I prefer? It's really hard to say. As I know that Predator 1 is a masterpiece of sci-fi action horror, it's definitely the better movie. But what puts Predator 2 over the top as a more rewatchable viewing experience? Well, it has Bill Paxton in it for one thing. But to me, it's the third act. The marvelous third act of both of these films culminates all the events leading up to that point in the story. Because the first one's more of a survival movie, the third act is basically kill or be killed, with Predator 2's final act being more of a chase movie with Harrigan chasing down the Predator. They both have long, extended, action-packed finales, but told from two very different perspectives. So at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, do you want the more survival, Lost in the Jungle monster movie with your giant 1980s WWE style action stars spewing one-liners, sweating like pigs, and cutting down every noise they hear in the jungle? Or do you want the police procedural action-packed cop adventure with a small group of detectives investigating and figuring out what's going on and who's doing these killings, also sweating like pigs? At the end of the day, though, ladies and gentlemen, both Predator 1 and 2 are eons better than anything in the franchise that came after. Thanks for having me on to talk Predator 2 with you, RT, and remember, the even bigger question to ponder is...
Want some candy? Want some candy?
I always want more candy, and that's why I have an old dad bulging gut. Anyways, Predator 2 delivers everything a Predator fan should want. Action, unique characters, violence, and a hero that must stand alone to face the creature. The locale of the film was a stark contrast to the first one. It expanded the world that the Predator exists in. It also looks unique from a filming perspective with its yellows, and it hasn't dated like other older films. I have to be honest, I appreciated that Arnold was not in this film, and I love Arnold. The idea that the same character would continually fight an otherworldly hunter again and again is just too convenient and, at this point, repetitive. I appreciate the curve they gave us in this one. This film refined the Predator from being a monster that just kills to a hunter with rules and codes. And this particular Predator is trying to follow them but is dangerously impulsive, almost to the point of a thrill seeker. I love that aspect of this movie, and it makes the Predator race a larger society with identities rather than just the same old monster in every Predator we see. Now, I will say that the first Predator film is a perfect first-time viewing experience and is superior to the second in that way. But if you've seen the movies multiple times, Predator 2 seems to be a lot more enjoyable on repeat viewings over the first one. This take does not diminish the first film, it's just the way I see it. This all comes down to personal perspective, but for me, I watch Predator 2 more than the first one. However, the first film is better in terms of execution. The first film really hits hard, but I'm going to agree with Cinema Gulp and say once you get over that first viewing experience, the impact wears off a little. I think there is a lot more in Predator 2, and it's a very aggressive, non-stop film. However, there's a good chance I'll go back and forth on this one for the rest of my life. But for now, that's what I'm going to stick with. I want to take a moment to thank Cinema Gulp for his thoughts and time, and I want to plug his channel. Check him out and give him some love. He is so close to 1,000 subs, so if you like what he does, please sub and help him get monetized. And that's the end of another video. Next up is 1979's The Black Hole. Don't be bummed that we're leaving the Predator franchise. There's always a possibility. We will return soon.
Don't worry, asshole. You'll get another chance.
If you like what you see here, click like and subscribe. Please share if you can.